Welcome in, Braves Today, bravestoday.com, all brought to you by Active Wealth Management. You can go to annuity360.net, get your free book there. He's Lindsay Crosby. I'm Ben Taylor, and it is Panic at the Truist is the way I labeled this when I sent it to Lindsay. And I don't know if it's time to panic yet or not, but I think a lot of Braves fans are. I don't know that the team will. Lindsay, your thoughts on that?
This was as close to the must win as you were going to get in this series, right? Because you had the pitching advantage. You had Spencer Strider, a healthy Spencer Strider, and you were not having to face Wheeler or Nola. But when you look at some of the stuff that happened in this game, okay, Atlanta has 5 hits, no runs. Phillies have 6 hits and 3 runs. Atlanta walks 3 times, Philly walks 4. Like, the production in all of the areas outside of runs was remarkably close to one another. And to me, this is that kind of reminder that everything is such a small sample size in the postseason, and luck plays such a big role. A couple of Atlanta's hitters had balls absolutely on the screws, but it goes right to Trey Turner, or like it's hit right at somebody. And so obviously, you can't just rest on your laurels. You can't say, yeah, that was good enough to win most of the time. But I don't think it's panic time yet, because you and Philly performed about the same, but they got lucky and you didn't. And like every possible manner, whether it was what was overturned on replay versus what wasn't, whether it was bounces of the ball, whether it was pitching changes working out, Philly got lucky with just about every single thing that happened, and Atlanta didn't. And so don't panic, but like you're going to have to go win 2 games in Philly unless you want to come back on a do or die game 5 in Truist. So it's not great, but it's not panic yet.
The reason I say don't panic, and every Brave fan that's listening to this right now is saying you're an idiot. And that is because this is an opportunity for the Braves. The Braves, as you just said, the few balls they did hit hard, they hit right at somebody. Something has got to fall. If it doesn't start to fall, then that's just more along the lines of luck than it is anything else, because you and I have talked about that. All you have to do is put the ball in play hard, and usually good things happen. Tonight, the good things happened to Philadelphia, not to Atlanta. Now, Harpered, of course, he got his home run, but to get beat 3-0, you and I have talked about it at all times throughout the year. Atlanta can put up a 6 spot at any time. And I understand that everybody goes, well, not with this pitching. Let me tell you something. It turned out to be genius by the Philadelphia management and by the staff, because Lindsay and I talked about this and texted about this leading into the game. I thought it was really weird that they took a guy that had one hard hit ball on him and yanked him in the 3rd inning. And it turned out, and they even said, the announcers, Francoeur was one of the ones, they said that they visited with the staff prior, and Philly staff said, this is an opportunity, having a day off, where we will throw as many as we need to out of the bullpen because we'll be able to get the rest out of them. And it worked out for them. It could have completely backfired, which I think that one thing that I did not agree with the lineup change. You made great points of why the lineup change should have taken place. I just think that Braves, or not just Braves, but I think that players are very OCD and have their way about them, and the change, which I'm sure they will support their manager on, but I still think it may have made a little bit of a difference.
Yeah. And before the lineup change, backing up just a second, the multiple pitching changes that all worked, like that's another example of luck. Like, look at Orion Kirkgreen. I've talked about him on Locked in MLB Prospects. We've written about him for the prospect stuff, but he had 3 career major league appearances, and they put him into the 7th inning of a playoff game. And not only did it work, he got through the inning on 8 pitches. Like, that's the example of everything went correct for Philly in this game. So, luck eventually evens out. The hard part about the NLDS is it's only at max a 5-game series, and you don't always have time for luck to even out on a 5-game series. Over the span of a season, you see the luck evens out. 5-game series, I don't know. But on the lineup change, I understand why they did it, right?
Oh, I do too. I do too.
It's and the natural reaction is to say, well, creatures of habit, they haven't been doing this all year. Don't make them do it now. But when you go back and you look at the actual game, Austin Riley goes, Ronald Acuña Jr., 0 for 3, but he walked, so he gets on at least once. Austin Riley moved to the 2-hole, 1 for 4, he gets on once. Matt Olson, 1 for 4, he gets on once. Ozzie Albies is 1 for 3 with a walk and a fielder's choice, he got on 3 times. And so it's not necessarily like it didn't, you can't point to something where you say, hey, that worked, but you also can't really point to something where you can say, hey, it didn't work. To me, the bigger issue was Atlanta had opportunities earlier in the game with runners in scoring position, and they didn't put the ball in play. They struck out. There was Michael Harris struck out, I want to say, with the bases loaded.
Yes.
And then Atlanta got 2 runners on with 1 out, and they had they had 2 strikeouts. Ronald Acuña Jr. struck out, and then Austin Riley struck out. And then later you saw them start to put the ball in play in those same situations, but it was a sac fly by Matt Olson and then a double play ball by Marcell Ozuna. And so you look at all of those scoring position opportunities, Atlanta put the ball in play twice. And so because of it, they go 0 for 5 with runners in scoring position, and they leave 7 on base, and they lose by 3. So it's just the inability to make contact because Philly's throwing all of their best relievers because they don't have to play a game tomorrow. That was the turning point of this game.
It's a post-playoff pod. Lindsay Crosby, Ben Taylor with you, and it's all brought to you by Active Wealth Management. Ford and the guys over there, we greatly appreciate what they do for us as well as what they can do for you. Ford wants to give each and every one of you an amazing gift, a free book from Annuity 360. All free. All you got to do is go to annuity360.net, submit that contact info, and you'll get that complimentary copy of his book. Now, I should mention, Ford and his team specialize in helping pre-retirees and retirees who have over $100,000 to invest, and they have the expertise to ensure your wealth is well protected and positioned for growth. You, as Braves fans, with $100,000 or more to invest, Ford and his team at Active Wealth are here to help you. By the way, Ford's registered investment advisor, Brookstone Capital Management, manages over $8.5 billion with a B in assets. That's quite impressive. Go to annuity360.net. You can also find out more at activewealth.com, or you can go to his show. Yes, he does a show, a radio show, which is put into a podcast at activewealthshow.com. But for your free book, go to annuity360.net. As Lindsay, we get back to some of the things that I thought were interesting. You mentioned Ronald Acuña, a little over aggressive the first few times at the plate.
Yeah, there was a lot of conversation leading into the game, a lot of writing done by different places. I don't think we did one on this, but about how Ronald Acuña, this is the first time he's been in the postseason and completely healthy since like 2019. And so I think some of that's just him pressing a little bit. It's just a little bit mental. He's wanting to put his mark on the postseason like he put his mark on the regular season. And it's unfortunately not always going to work out, especially against a team that is analytically inclined like the Phillies, that made a point of diagnosing and doing whatever would work best against the tendencies they happened to notice this team had. And one of those was first pitch swings. They didn't throw him, I believe, anything hittable in the first pitch in any of his at-bats. And you see one of the few games where not only is he hitless, but he struck out, which he rarely struck out this year. He cut that strikeout rate by more than half. And so something where settle down a little bit, get your feet underneath you. Let's try this again, maybe with a little more back to your usual in-season strategy versus whatever that was tonight.
Is it more mental than anything? Is he pressing a little bit because of the way he did not do very well last year in the postseason? And maybe he's thinking he's got a little bit of pressure on him because even when he got on with a walk, I fully expected him. Now, you don't want to run yourself out of an inning, but I fully expected him with a righty on the mound to try and take second, and he didn't. Now, it worked out fine because he still got around. And he ended up getting on third, just the Braves never did anything with it.
Yeah, and I was surprised that he didn't necessarily take off for third when he was on second earlier in the game too. But no, it's. I think some of it is probably him pressing a little bit mentally, simply because he set a bunch of records. He's arguably the face of baseball right now with everything that he did, and so there's a little bit of mental pressure to like, hey, I have to perform, I have to do my job, I have to do all this amazing stuff, and it would be ridiculous to assume that he was immune from that because everybody's subject to it in some way or another, even the stars. And so I think it's just first time in 4 years he's been healthy entering the postseason. I mean, he's been fully healthy and back to the Ronald Acuña Jr. we know. And so Probably just got a little bit out in front of his skis and needs to reel it back in a little bit.
It wasn't just him, though, Lindsay. It was every one of them in the first 2 innings. Everybody was going after that first pitch. I don't know if maybe it was Suarez, they were looking at what they saw earlier in the year, and maybe the scouting report said he's going to float one over the middle to try to get ahead of you, try to jump on top of it. The Phillies switched it up a little bit because you saw he started off with a lot of sliders and a lot of off speed instead of starting off with fastballs. On the other end of things, Strider just the opposite, as you saw in the very first inning. Now, Atlanta got out of it, but they went up there swinging because they knew that he was going to try to get ahead of you with that first pitch fastball.
Yeah, Spencer Strider's not as hard to plan for as a lot of other pitchers because there's not a lot he's going to do to fool you, right? You know he's throwing a fastball or a slider almost every time. I think he threw 93 pitches in this game, and all but 6 were fastball or slider. Like, you know what he's going to do. The challenge is timing it up, getting the bat in the right spot to get a barrel on it to get a hit. It's not figuring it out. You don't have to work out what he's going to do to you. And so I think with Spencer Strider, you're going to have situations where like Bryce Harper comes up and says, okay, first 2 at-bats, I got a first pitch fastball every time. He knows that. He's going to throw me a slider. I'm going to sit slider and get a home run. Like, you're going to have things like that happen, I feel like, with a guy like a Spencer Strider when you face a team that has really good analytics and can really kind of diagnose what you've done all season, what you've done against their lineup in the past, and things like that. So it's, the Braves did a good job early of minimizing the runs that Philly could score. I mean, they had runners in the past. It felt like I think Strider only had 1 inning that was a 1-2-3 inning. They were doing a really good job of doing the most damage they could do on those pitches, and Atlanta did a really good job defensively, whether it was the stolen base or the caught stealing at second base, whether it was the double play in the first inning, at getting out of that and minimizing the damage. But a couple of those are going to get through, and that's where you expect the number 1 offense in baseball to pick you up, and they weren't able to do that.
You mentioned the caught stealing at second base with Ozzie. I don't know if he was caught or not. I just don't know how that play stands. And then a little bit later in the game, I don't want to think that Sean Murphy's reaction helped sell the fact that maybe it hit his glove, but it probably may have helped when they were looking at the review, because I did not see anything in either one of those that should have overturned a call. Well, that should have overturned Ozzie's or should have stood with Rio Muto when he swung and fouled the ball off. Now, even they said sound. I didn't even hear the double hit. I'm not real sure, but apparently Sean Murphy felt like he hit it, just the way he reacted.
Yeah, post-game quote from Murphy came out just a few minutes ago that Murphy thought he touched the bat. It didn't look like it on replay. He didn't feel it. He didn't hear it, but he thought that he touched the bat, and that's why you didn't see him arguing when they called that. But it was a really weird. We've heard for so long, like all season, about how you have to have like indisputable video evidence to overturn the call on the field, and we've seen so many of them stand, and then to see the stolen base get overturned when it wasn't obvious at all that it was the wrong call was a little bit confusing. I'm not trying to make it sound like we're blaming the umpires.
No, not at all.
Yeah. That was weird. But at the same time, I mean, Atlanta lost this game to Philly. Philly won this game, but that was a weird moment. And it's one of those, it's heightened in the postseason, right? You have six umpires. You have the best of the best crews in there. And you made the best call you could have made in real time at second base, but then you blew the review when you went to New York. And that's just, it's kind of hard to reconcile that with it's the postseason. Things are supposed to be right. And it's weird.
Correct. I mean, that's what replay's for. Your replay is to get it right. That's the whole reason it was implemented. And
to me, sorry.
I was saying I was texting with a buddy of mine, and I said, because he was complaining about the Ozzie call, and I said, yeah, but they ended up getting the Olsen call right because that was obvious. It looks like that second base umpire just had a really rough night tonight.
He was on that one. I saw the replay. He was watching the ball. He wasn't watching Olsen's feet. And I think it was something where he expected the throw to beat Olsen, so he was making sure he caught it first. And to me, replay should exist to fix an obviously wrong call. You shouldn't be slow motion frame by frame. It should be something like that Olsen play where you look at it and you're like, oh yeah, he was safe. Let's overturn that and keep going. If you have to take a couple minutes and look at 5 or 6 different angles and slow it down frame by frame. Just stick with what was on the field and keep going. And that's why the overturn on Ozzie was so weird, because it was, I think the original call was right, and it was close enough where it could have just stood and been fine. But for some reason, they saw something that made him change it, and that just was weird to me.
And credit Trey Turner for running off the field and helping sell it, because just the opposite happened behind the plate, as Murphy did not sell it. He sold it in the wrong way. So that just lets you know to kind of keep your cool about you and do what you're supposed to be doing. Lindsay, is this going to be a team that, because of the way Philadelphia is swinging the bat and against one of Atlanta's top pitchers in Strider, is Atlanta going to have to out-hit Philly, not necessarily out-pitch them? Or is it going to have to be that team that we've expected to see all year that puts up 4, 5, 6, 7 runs a game?
I think game 2, you could see a closer matchup simply because you have Max Fried up there, right? So you could win a 3-2 game or something like that on game 2. But outside of that, yeah, you're going to have to out-hit Philly in this one. You're going to have to take Philly's strategy from last year of ball go boom. You got to get that offense working, and there's legitimate cause for concern here, because you've got Zach Wheeler on the mound on Monday, and then you got Aaron Nola in game 3. And Atlanta's going to have to score more runs than obviously they did today if they want to win the game. But it's going to have to be driven by the offense now. You can't necessarily count for sure on being able to have Max Fried for a game 5. You know, he said all the right stuff in media availability. He said he was fine. He said his finger felt fine. He said he was going to be able to come back out and pitch on game 5 if he needed to. But we don't know that. And so Atlanta's offense has to pick it up, so that you don't have to go into a game 5 not knowing if you have Max Fried or not.
They said something in the broadcast that absolutely shocked me. First time a team that has led the majors in runs throughout the season shut out in game 1 since 2001. That was the Mariners. I think they said 1935 was the other one with the Tigers.
Yeah.
So tough look, and shutout of all places at Truist, which just does not happen.
I put this in the takeaways this year. This is the 3rd time in 2023 that Atlanta has been shut out. They were shut out in April on the 19th versus the Padres, and they were shut out in May 12th versus the Blue Jays. But both of those were on the road. This was the first shutout of the Atlanta Braves in Truist Park in 2023. So not a thing we're used to seeing, and that's part of the reason why I'm not necessarily panicking yet, because it feels like it's okay. It was a little bit like, it felt like a little bit fluky with all the replay reviews that were changed, with the weird ways that runs were scored, the error on Spencer Strider that comes back around the score, the catcher's interference, and all the hard hit balls by Atlanta that didn't fall. And so that's why I'm not panicking. But yeah, it wasn't great. And now you've probably got to go win. You've got to go probably win 2 in Citizens Bank Park if you want to advance to the NLCS. It's not great.
And I will say this. Looked a little dead. And I'm not talking just players. It looked like Truist was not quite as loud as it usually is. So come Monday, I would like to see the fans kind of step it up a little bit, make it where even if Philly gets a lead, make it uncomfortable like they did throughout the regular season with teams that would come in, where even in the bottom of the ninth, if you're down 6-1, you still have an opportunity to come back, because I do think this team feeds off of that energy.
Now, this was the largest crowd in Truist Park history, and we saw some of the issues with that when there was the catcher's interference call and things being thrown on the field out in the outfield. And to me, it was kind of dumb, because like, it's your team on the field right now. Like, your pitcher's on the mound. Pierce Johnson's getting iced right now because you're throwing things on the field after he had to sit through a replay review. And then some things were like landing in the bullpen, like landing in your own bullpen while your guys are throwing. It's kind of dumb, but it's part of me is hoping that because of the distractions of football, college football, Georgia playing at the exact same time as this game on Saturday, that hopefully Monday's a better atmosphere. We saw last year and the year before Atlanta have good atmospheres, even for day games on Mondays and stuff. And so you get a primetime game. Let's bring the noise on Monday. Let's make Philly uncomfortable. Let's get a win and even the series before we head back to Philadelphia.
Your pick for Monday?
I'm going to go with Atlanta in a close one, simply because I think it's the worst case scenario if Atlanta loses, and I think they'll do anything they have to win on Monday.
I'm going to go complete opposite. I think Atlanta wins like 7-1 or 7-2, and the bats come alive because they finally wake up and make things happen. So it's all been brought to you by Active Wealth Management. It is the postseason pods. He is Lindsay Crosby. I am Ben Taylor. Thank you guys for hanging out and watching Braves Today. Go online, bravestoday.com. As you heard Lindsay say, takeaways are up along with a lot of other articles that will come out between now and Monday. Lindsay, as always, thank you, sir.
Thank you.